Hello everyone, Giltar here with part 2 of my sort of in-depth look at War in the Pocket. I actually want to touch upon one point briefly about animation, and then I'll move on to the story aspect. There's the final scene between Chris and Bernie, and they're getting ready to deal to each other the death blow through their mobile suits. And when you see a close-up of the Alex's beam saber, and we see some gas being emitted from the emitter section of the beam saber hilt, for a brief moment before the beam saber blade ignites and we see the beam saber. I feel that that's a great example of a level of detail that is not drawing attention to itself, but it adds a layer of depth to the moment. And actually, it's not something, well, like I said before, where it's not something that draws attention to itself. I think most people would notice that on a subconscious level, and it further reinforces the sort of concrete, realistic feel of the story up to that point, and the whole story set up as a more real-world approach. Now, moving on to the story points, I have to say that Mobile Suit Gundam 80 War in the Pocket does set itself apart by not getting into the sort of problem-laden area of using ideals or philosophical points of view as part of the concept of the story. It doesn't do that at all. In fact, War in the Pocket takes a lot of time and sort of in a lot of ways it shows the common person's view of war. When we see Side 6, it doesn't view Zeon or the Earth Federation as good guys or bad guys. They view it as simply two powerful entities that are having a very costly conflict, and simply the colonists don't want to get mixed up in it. They have enough troubles in their own lives with their own issues. They don't need war to spill onto their land and cause even more havoc and trouble. Zeon itself is not really villainous at all in the way it's depicted. I mean, even the group of Steiner, who's the commander of the special operations team, trying to either steal or destroy the Alex, he, Garcia, Misha, and Bernie are not villains. They're simply a special ops unit doing the dirty work for those in power. And they believe in what they're doing, but it's not like they're malicious about it. They don't see the Earth Federation as villains. They're just seeing that we've been given an objective, and this can help our side, and possibly maybe save some lives, prevent the loss of lives that could be otherwise lost if we didn't stop this secret weapon from getting out. And you know what the thing is that it's not so black and white. I mean, when we look at characters like Steiner, he's not a totally bad guy, but he has no compunction against killing people. Garcia seems to be some sort of psychopath. He really likes stabbing people. Misha is some sort of alcoholic who is kind of, I guess, scary. He's quiet, so you never know if a person like that will snap at any given moment. And then Bernie is more of the common man. He's just a rookie. He's along for this mission because he's been told that he has to go with them. But at the same time, he's not a good guy. I mean, these characters they're unique, they're individuals, but they're professional. They're doing their work. They're not going out of their way at all to do any harm while they're on their mission. Even a character like Garcia, you would expect he would go out and maybe have some fun and beat someone up or something. But he's not like a comically stupid villain that you see in most movies who just go out and draw attention to themselves. Like, I mean, that's the thing about these characters. They're not villains. They're bad guys, but they're not outright villains. They're antagonists. And then the protagonists, or what could be seen as the good guys, but they're not, are the Earth Federation, where they seem to be apathetic to the colony's plight when they call for help during the Kampfer's rampage. They're not bad guys, but they're not good guys either. I mean, they're just like anything else. They are an entity, a group of individuals who have their own purposes, their motives, their own motivations, and they're doing what they're doing because that's what they think is right. The same thing goes with Zeon. And then we actually are introduced to the character of Al, where he is in a way a representative of the viewer. He has more of an omniscient view because he can see things that neither the Zeon side or the Federation side see. He sees a little bit of both. So in a way, he is kind of like a window for the viewer to associate themselves with. Also, he in another way of representing the viewer, especially if you're a Gundam fan, is that he kind of represents the average Gundam fan who may only be exposed to the more modern and superficial aspects of the fiction. Even something like Gundam 00, which I greatly enjoy and still do, does not reach anywhere close to War in the Pocket's depth in terms of storytelling and concepts. The problems that plague normal anime that try to, like even something like Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is basically a perfect example of armchair psychology, where someone's really grasping at making something, or trying to make something more important than it is. We see things like that happen in Double O, where there's a lot of talk about stopping war, but then Setsuna goes on this really weird rant about I am Gundam and yada yada yada, where it really just makes no sense. I mean, that's just really odd. And War in the Pocket does not deal with conflict of ideals. It deals with an examination of the common person during war, and an examination also of soldiers during war, where soldiers do not represent the agenda of a government or a faction. Soldiers are simply the people doing the work, and some of them, will believe strongly in their cause, and others maybe not so much. There's a variety of people there, because not everybody's the same, and that's the thing, that not all soldiers are good or bad. They're doing their job, and they're just like everyone else trying to get by. And that's what was really, we see that time and again in War in the Pocket, that these are just, everybody's shown in a more natural manner. There is no outright hero or villain. We're not introduced into really far-fetched concepts like new types. We're dealing with people that are talking about, I just need to survive, I need to do my job, and hopefully I won't get killed. And again, Al represents the common person, the viewer, who sees more than the other characters in the story. And anyway, Al comes through a journey of coming of age. He grows up very quickly when he deals with the death of Bernie, and the fact that it's a tragedy when Bernie is killed by Chris, because they don't have any idea of each other's existence in the mobile suits. They just think the other person's some, anonymous enemy pilot. And the tragedy of that is that they don't know each other, and Bernie ends up being killed, and Al's the only one who knows later on when Chris's identity is revealed as a pilot of the Alex. That's when Al actually has a kind of a mental breakdown, and he's is traumatized by it. And I think that's a real tragic element, but great for the story. It really makes it something that hits home for some people, I think. 8Ball Yuri, a YouTube user who sent me some private messages, and he mentioned that he felt that without the comm channel, for him it was disappointing that Chris and Bernie didn't know each other. I do have to respectfully disagree, because with everything laid out for us, with everything explained so well for all the characters to have total understanding of each other, it really does make the story more lazy. It takes away the drama, because the tension between the characters is added to by the fact that they don't know each other. And the tragedy is that they could have been, in another life, young lovers, similar age, have an interest in each other, and there was some implication of romantic interest. These are just young people, and they could have been friends had circumstances been changed. And I think it serves the movie more by the fact that they didn't know each other, that they fought in mortal combat, and that one of them was ultimately killed by the other. And Chris will never, I assume, know about Bernie's identity unless Al tells her at some later point. But to me, that is a bit of tragedy that adds to the depth of the movie, that is not melodramatic, that is something that it really gets people thinking, because I think it is a commentary on the faceless nature of war, where people will demonize and remove the humanity from those that they disagree and oppose, to the point where these are not humans, the people that they oppose. These are just monsters. These are, just cruel things that we must hate, that are totally wrong and we are in the right. I think this notion of Bernie and Chris not knowing each other, and they never get to know each other, is a wonderful move, because I think a lot of directors would have been so tempted to get into some exposition to explain, to have the characters come to know each other, and then either end up resolving their problems amicably, or they kill each other and then there's a melodramatic moment of angst because one person's conflicted about killing another person. I think this lack of calm communication, where the pilots don't talk to each other, is handled in such a realistic way. It makes the movie more enjoyable, because up to this point the movie has been consistently, for the most part, realistic. And if it were to dive into the use of the comm channel for the pilots to communicate with each other, would have been ridiculous. I mean, how would they know each other's channels, which frequency to use? It just wouldn't make sense on so many levels, and on an emotional level, it's just really pandering to the audience, in my opinion. And I know other people will disagree with me, but, I mean, there's no other way I can put it. I mean, a lot of times, the use of exposition in Gundam, and most anime in general, is very clumsy, lazy, and quite childish. It really just it spoon feeds the audience, essentially. So that concludes part 2 of my review. In part 3, I'll return with a look at actually some of the criticisms of this work. Even though I have praised War in the Pocket, it isn't without its faults, and there are some pretty significant flaws in my opinion. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 and part 1. I'll be back soon with the third and final part of my look at War in the Pocket. Thanks for watching.